We're going to look at packet tracer routing between two networks. We've not done much with routing, so it's a good idea to take a look at it. Routing is how a packet gets from one place to the next. To get from my computer to Google, my packet has to go along a specific route, like going along a highway. So this is going to be network highways. We've already got packet tracer installed. We're going to set up a little network with a router connecting two PCs together. So of course, first we need a couple PCs. Well, we don't need the PCs first, but I just happen to grab them first. We need a couple PCs. I'm going to go to Network Devices and grab a couple switches. In a business environment, typically you have separate devices. You don't have a single device that has switches, that has a switch, wireless access, and a router all in the same thing. You have separate devices. So we're going to use a 2911, which is an older router. All this stuff is kind of old. Actually, I have one of these 2960 switches, I think, in the back of my room. Yeah, it runs fast through Ethernet, so it's on my pretend network. Well, we're going to connect these together. The problem is they're not going to show green until we get done. So let's connect them together. I'm going to use my, which one is this? Console, copper straight. Yeah, copper straight through is the one that I want. No, that's not the one I want. So you can connect to any port that you want. It doesn't matter. For these guys, it doesn't matter a bit. And as far as connecting the switch to the router, doesn't matter a bit. On the switch end. Now on the router end, if you look at the little diagram that I have, it'll show that this leg of the router is connected to Gigabit Ethernet 0-0. So how do you document this like I did in my directions? Well, that's this little guy right here. Nope, there it is. Rectangle. There it is. Place a note. So I'm going to place a note right there by clicking and just say Gigabit Ethernet. Oh, spell it right would be good. Ethernet 0/0, because notice you can't tell that is what it's connected to. So we click somewhere. Whoops, we have to press, I think, escape. Yep, escape, or click on this guy to get back to our selector so we can drag things around. And that's how you'd also put in your other documentation. Oops. So we'll put in another, yep, there we are. We'll put in another note. We're going to put in the IP address of this port for our network. This will become the default gateway for our PC, because if the PC can't communicate with anybody else on his network, it's going to go out the default gateway, and then hopefully the router knows about where to go next. So these two guys can communicate. Why is that? Well, you're correct. You do not need an IP address on either of these to communicate, because they're communicating using a MAC address. However, a router is a layer 3 device, so to have a connection all the way through, we do have to set IP addresses on this end and this end. All right, let's connect up our final cable. Doesn't matter on the switch, but it does matter here. We're going to go to 0.1. And you can go ahead and fill everything else out, just like I showed you when we got started with this. So it looks fairly identical to what's in my assignment. Next step. Well, it says we should configure the router. So we'll click the router. Here is our config tab. We are going to set the display names fine, router 0, because everything on the computer, everything in computers starts at 0. We do want to configure this interface. With Cisco routers, you have to turn the interface on, which enables the interface. Now we already know that this is going to be 192.168.1.1, we're going to use our standard Class C subnet. Does this router need any other settings? No, because it only operates on layer 3. Layer 4 and above is DNS and all those other guys. While we're here, let's do the same thing to our other port. Now this is a different network. Routers connect and create networks. So this is 10.1. There. Now if something comes in this port looking for 1.1, the router will send it over there. If somebody comes in looking for something else, well, we're just going to be out of luck because we don't have a default gateway. I decided not to put that in this lab just to keep it simple. All right, well now, look at there. It's showing that things are working, but are they really working? Well, we do need to set up our PCs so they have addresses, because right now there is no DHCP server. We need to set up static addresses. So, here we go. Let's go to desktop, IP configuration. We can set our computers to any address that is not used by the router. So we can do 192.168.1, and in my lab I chose, 10. And there's our, oh, it's an invalid IP. Oh, it is invalid. 192.168.1.10. There we go, that's valid. We do need to tell our computer where is our gateway. We do not need a gateway if all we're going to do is communicate in our local network. We do need a gateway if we're going to communicate with another network. So let's go ahead and close that. Now this computer knows that this is the gateway. This router knows about the other network. Let's finish setting up our PC. Same thing, go to the desktop IP configuration. This network is different, .10.1. Oh no, 10.10. 10.1 is our default gateway. It's fairly common to have .1 as a default gateway. That doesn't mean it has to be. That's not like a rule. It's just kind of a convention. All right. Well, it probably took you longer to do this than me because I've worked with this a lot. I like Packet Tracer. Don't forget to save early and often. So we're going to go into our PC 0. We're going to test to see if we have access. So we're going to ping. I know that's kind of small. Can we ping our router? Well, by golly, we can. So we have our IP settings set up correctly on our computer and in the router, at least for that point. Now let's go to 10.1. Can we get to the other side of the router? Well, we can. So now we've made a hop over to here. Let's do the last part by doing 10.10, which means now, something's not right, is it? So what does that mean? We need to, and it is right. It's just sometimes Packet Tracer takes a minute to do things. That's because it's a simulation, not an actual physical router. Speaking of simulation, we are going to do a simulation to see our little, I can't make that bigger, to see our packets going. All right, we're going to click the play button right here. And we're not going to be able to see much because my computer's kind of, let's make this a little bigger. There we go. All right, it's showing just some of these packets don't matter. Like some of this stuff going on is just housekeeping, so we don't need to pay attention to that. What we want to pay attention to is going into our command prompt, and I'm going to bring it over here. Let me clear the screen. Oh, I guess I can't clear the screen. I thought you could. Well, it's a simulation, so it doesn't necessarily do everything it's supposed to do. So now if we bring back our command to ping the other computer, it's going to ping. And notice right here, ICMP, it shows our little packet being created. It's going to show the packet moving. It's going to show it hitting the router, right? hit the switch, it went to the router, and then it's sliding down to the switch. ICMP is the protocol that the ping application is based on, and there we are. We made it clear to PC1. Well, ping requires a response, so now we're coming back. And don't pay attention to any of these STP things, that's just switch housekeeping. And we got to the router, now we're heading to the switch, and finally we go back to the PC, and that's going to happen several times. And it's going to be pretty slow, but nothing wrong with it being slow, because that allows us to see what's going on pretty easily. Well, that was fun. And then we have the same questions we've had before. Make sure you know what layer this is, what's the purpose of a default gateway, what moves a packet, how does an operating system determine from the IP address and subnet mask where to send the packet. Okay, that'll take a little thinking. We've talked about it, but this is where you have to explain it in your own words, which helps by recalling information and typing it in or telling somebody. That helps imprint that information in your main brain. It's one of those learning things. We learn by repetition, repetition, repetition.